Hi, this is Terry Glaze, and you're listening to Drag the Waters
with Joshua.
All right, guys, it is now time to drag the water some more here on the CMS Podcast Network. And we have the one, the only Heidi Shepherd of Butcher Babies. Heidi, how are you today?
I'm good. Thank you so much. It's I would say, hey, it's finally 2021, but it's still it's still a giant disaster.
Yeah. You know, all this global unrest, and here we are talking about Pantera. So,
hey, I guess it kind of makes sense.
that's how I cope with things. I just go back to what makes you comfortable, and Pantera is like a nice warm bowl of mashed potatoes or something.
Yes, it's all the feel goods.
So let's kind of talk about, I mean, obviously, you guys have been off the road for a while. You've been at home. You have put out a couple of singles last month. You got Sleeping with the Enemy and Bottom of a Bottle over the last few months, so what's been going on with you? What's up?
Well, we were sitting on these songs for quite a while, so we're really excited to finally get these out into the public. Actually, we've been sitting on them since summer of 2019, and of course we had all these big plans for 2020, releasing songs periodically throughout the year while we're on tour, of course. But when all that took a turn for the worst, we just kind of put everything on the back burner, and I think most of the music industry did. And it came to a point where we all felt like, oh, we have to get this out there. If I don't get some music out there, I'm going to feel like a giant piece of shit. So we started releasing songs, and I'm so glad we did, because I feel like it was perfect timing. Everyone needs a little bit something new in their lives, since we've been staring at the same four walls. So just releasing music. We have more music coming out all the way through 2021. And then we're going to record again in February. So I'm really excited about that.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are going to end up 2021 or 2022, whenever the world kind of comes back,
right.
To get an onslaught of new music and new tours. And I think we're going to have like 5 or 6 Ozfest all at once, just traveling, because everyone needs to tour.
Well, that, and I think about the first moment that I'm going to stand on stage, and that makes me emotional, right? Because it's been so long. I mean, we took time off in 2019 to write and record. And so it's been a very long time for us. We only played 2 shows in 2019. So wow. I'm all cobwebs right now. We were supposed to do a live stream in December, but someone on our team tested positive for COVID, so we had to postpone that as well. So I'm just over here sipping my tea.
There you go.
Yeah.
It's nuts, looking to talk to you. One of the big things in the Butcher Babies career was a cover of Fucking Hostile that went viral forever ago on YouTube. And so I was going back down the rabbit hole and watching YouTube videos from ever ago of live shows. And I'm like, oh man, I almost forget what being in a live show is like anymore.
I know. And who knows if it'll come back the same. I mean, I hope so. I think when we're all allowed to go and people feel comfortable, it's going to be, I'll be at a show every night, right. Besides playing it, I want to go to a show every night. I miss it. I miss that feeling just as much as everyone else, so I hope it comes back the same. Just fingers crossed.
So what have you been doing this last year? Just kind of, are you sitting around staring at a wall? Are you writing new music? I mean, you talked a little bit about that, but I mean, what's the day-to-day life of Heidi these days?
Oh, well, I wake up, look at the wall. No, we've been writing music. We've been doing a lot of different artistic things, experimenting with different sounds, trying different covers, a lot of stuff that has been unreleased. And like I said, we're going into the studio in February to record. And that's going to be great, because we've been sitting on these songs that we've written for a really long time as well. We have so many so much material, so many songs to record. It's hard to narrow down which ones to actually do. So we're really, really excited about that aspect. The fact that we've had time to sit and do this. I also moved. I lived in Los Angeles for about 15 years, and I moved to Las Vegas. I never thought I would ever live in Las Vegas, but here I am, and I actually really like it. I look out my window, and I've got the side of a mountain. It's really peaceful here. You wouldn't think Las Vegas would be peaceful, but it's very peaceful.
We flew out there a couple of years ago for my birthday, and it was funny. You're like flying in, you're like, there's nothing, and then boom, city. You know, like you're
Yeah.
in the middle of nowhere.
Oh, absolutely. And something I really love about it is because there's the Strip, of course, you know, Party Central there, which I've only been to once since I've lived here, and I moved here in August. But on the outskirts, it's all really peaceful and beautiful. Deserts, I love it. It's beautiful here. Never thought that I would live here.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a great town. I played there a few times, and then obviously did the birthday there and stuff. And I actually got my, you know, I've been there many times, put it that way. And it's definitely a fun town. Got a lot of great friends out there. Chris Kale, you know, all those guys out there. So, you know, definitely a lot of good friends in Vegas. So, you know, definitely need to get out there more often.
You know, that's something I realized too. So most of my friends had moved out of Los Angeles, including Carla, the other girl in my band. Carla moved to Chicago, and our drummer moved to Oregon. And so Henry and I were like, well, there's really nothing here for us anymore because all of our friends are moving. Yeah. And so we came to Vegas, and we have more friends and more things to do than I feel like I ever had in LA.
Yeah, definitely. It's over the last few years, there's definitely been a, you know, convergence of metal dudes just all moving to Vegas, you know, so definitely gonna have a lot of people around. Kind of going back on your history, and I know you were on the Talk to Me podcast forever ago, and we kind of went over this a little bit, but you know, just going into you know, growing up around the house, was your house full of music? You know, were your parents musical? How did that go?
Yes, they were very musical. In fact, it was funny. I fell down the rabbit hole of old photos last night, and I was showing Henry pictures of my family playing instruments. Just my family would get together, and they would pull out the drums, pull out the guitars. My dad is the middle of 12 kids, and so they had a giant family, and they would play music together all the time. It was like a family band. And so every time they get together, there's music, people are singing. So I was showing Henry pictures of my grandpa, who has since passed away, but you know, sitting around singing, playing guitar with the kids. That's what I grew up around, but it wasn't heavy music at all. I, in fact, wasn't allowed to listen to anything heavy. Right. It was all old-timey type stuff. And the things that my parents would listen to was like Air Supply or Styx. And so, or the Osmonds, which I grew up on. And so for me, that was my musical upbringing, and I loved it. It was so much fun. In fact, everyone else in my family, I'm the oldest of 6 kids, everyone else in my family plays an instrument except for me. But I am a vocalist, so I guess that's kind of an instrument.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Unfortunately, my grandmother passed away recently. We went to the funeral, and they had all these old photos of the family, and the old photos of my dad and his brothers and sisters looked like they could have been in like a 1970s traveling in a van or traveling in a school bus kind of.
Oh yeah.
And, you know, it's so great to see those old photos.
It's so cute.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so cute. It was just like almost just a trip down memory lane because I'm one of the oldest cousins. And so I was there for a lot of that. And I knew all of the songs my grandpa would sing. And my dad always would play his guitar and kick his legs. And he was so cool.
Oh, that's definitely the coolest, man. So when were you introduced to heavy music, not being able to listen to it growing up?
So like most metalheads, I was a rebellious child. I was an athlete. And so I ran track and field, and I was a cheerleader, and I would go running throughout my neighborhood. Well, just outside my neighborhood was a skate park. And I would run to the skate park and hang out with all the kids. And that's the first time that I heard metal. And it was something that I just immediately gravitated towards. I remember the first time that I heard of Slipknot, what was a kid was wearing a Slipknot shirt. And I looked at it and it was almost like terrifying. I'm like, what is going on here? What are these clowns? You know? And I had to know what it was. And then as the music, they blast their boom boxes and skate. And then a couple of the kids had a band. I think they were called like Pandora or something like that. And I would tell my mom I'm going to hang out with other friends, and I'd go and see their band play, or I'd hang out at the skate park and see hear the music. And it was really something that grabbed me from the inside, I guess you can say. It was the music that described how I was feeling as an adolescent, sheltered teenager. And I remember, and I've told this story so many times, I don't remember if I told you this, but I remember my mom found a Korn CD in my closet, and she pulled it up, broke it in front of my face, and she's like, you don't have this stuff in my house. My mom loves Korn now, but back in the day, it's funny because all of our parents and Butcher Babies, they're super into metal now. Very, very supportive now. But back then she was not having it. I remember when there's still people in my hometown that I grew up in that think that I'm a devil worshiper. They think that there was a neighbor who told my brother, whom was moving out to LA to live with me at the time. My neighbor told my brother, now don't go living in LA and end up like your sister. As if like I'm some horrible human being. It's because of metal.
Oh, it is. It's funny kind of thinking back to listening to Slipknot. Obviously, I grew up listening to Kiss and then Metallica and Megadeth. Mm-hmm. So, there's a gradual increase to Slipknot. I don't know what my brain would have done had been my introduction to metal. You hear Iowa or the self-titled,
Well, I think one of the first songs was Surfacing. And, fuck this world, fuck everything that you stand for. And I was all clutching my pearls. Oh my God, I love this. Right. So, I mean, like I said, it was definitely speaking to what I was feeling inside. I grew up Mormon, and I felt so sheltered in Provo, Utah, where I remember, because I was a cheerleader and I would wear tank tops. Not just in my uniform, but I mean, like at school, and all the other cheerleaders are like, she's such a hoe, because I wore tank tops, and if I used the F word, I was just, such a bad person. So it was my escapism, I guess you could say.
And this kind of leads into the podcast subject. When was the first time you remember hearing Pantera?
Oh my God! Well, Pantera. That's why I think the band name was Pandora, because they would blast Pantera all the time. And I think that was their biggest influence, the band that I would go see. And I really think it was Pandora is what they called themselves. But it was, that was the first time at the skate park was hearing Pantera. And to me, Pantera was because I was introduced to like Slipknot and that first, but Pantera for me was more of that groovy type. I guess more of it hit a little bit harder, just a little bit more like this rather than this. So that was I obviously really loved it. Pantera has had a huge influence on my life as a heavy metal vocalist. I mean, Phil was one of my biggest idols. I've toured with him since, and that was the most incredible thing.
Did you ever get to see them live? I'm trying to put the timeline together. That probably would have been right as finishing up.
I didn't, because I wasn't allowed to, and they were done before I graduated from high school.
Right.
So yeah, that's the biggest bummer of my life, I feel like.
Right.
Yeah, but I did get to see Vinnie play, and I did get to see Phil play, and I have seen Rex play. So other than that, but no, I mean, it's so unfortunate. But of course, I've watched videos, and I feel like I have adopted, I guess you can say, a lot of the stage moves and the party aspect of Pantera. Like, they take their music seriously, but on stage it's a fucking party. Right. And I remember watching videos of them, and that was my inspiration. If you've ever seen Butcher Babies, we don't stand still. Like, not one person on stage is standing still, right. Even the drummer. So it's we've definitely taken a page out of their book for our live show. I can't help it. I get on stage and I just feel it. It just happens.
Yeah, growing up, I mean, when you're watching Vulgar Video or any of the videos growing up, that makes you want to be in a band. Like, you're like, I want to be Dimebag Darrell. I want to have fun. I want to drink alcohol at large quantities and just party, but also just be masters at your craft too. So yeah, it's definitely a guidebook to how to be a rock star.
Absolutely. And I am super grateful for that. And people have said I'm like the heavy metal cheerleader, because I just like jump around and just crazy on stage. And that's how Phil was. And, him just jumping everywhere, couldn't give a shit. And I gravitate towards that so hard. I'm so bummed I never got to see them play, but I'm grateful for the videos.
So when did you tour with Phil? What was that tour?
It was the Revolver Golden God tour. Okay. It was Black Label Society, Down, Devil You Know, and Butcher Babies. Okay. And it was absolutely incredible. I would probably watch them every single night. Now, Phil, this is the coolest, craziest story. He was so sweet to us, just the nicest guy. We all got along so well. I, of course, was like nervous to even talk to him, but he was just so down to earth, such a cool dude. And they weren't there for like the last 5 shows or something like that. And it was the last show that we were playing with them. And Phil, he was saying bye to everybody. And he came up to me and he says, "I bestow upon you the gift of success." And he turns around and walks away. Like, it's a fucking movie, right? He turns around and walks away, and he turns back and he looks at me and he's like, "Actually, it's a curse." Yeah. And keeps walking, and I like, it's like being knighted, or like Jesus Christ himself put his crown. It's just kind of like, it was pretty amazing. And I always remember that, because it was just such a cool moment where one of your idols is just so cool. Because I've met other idols that were not cool, but he was just so cool. And on stage, he just demands such control, and he has a presence about him, to this day. And even when he walks in a room, and I just find that so inspiring. And how cool he was to everyone, being the legend that he is, that's also something that was very inspiring too.
Yeah, I mean, the last time I saw him was at a media tent, at a festival.
Yeah.
Obviously he walks into the media tent, and it doesn't matter who you're interviewing, everybody just, turned to him. But he stopped, talked to everybody, took pictures with everybody, signed everything, just, had little side conversations with almost everybody. Like, he could have absolutely, he doesn't need to go into the media tent, but he came in, talked to everybody, told us what's going on. And then, it's a great to see him kind of in that atmosphere.
Oh yeah. I hope someday I get to tour with him again. I mean, he's such a doll. And I remember we played Rocklahoma right after that tour, and he was side stage watching us, and I was like, "Oh shit, better do good." But yeah, I adore him. And Vinnie was just like the sweetest, nicest guy. Absolutely incredible. Every time we came to Vegas and he was in town, he would come see us play, and he it was, I think the last time I saw him was about 3 days before he passed. We were playing here in Vegas, and he was at the show, and it was always just the nicest guy. So, I mean, the Pantera family, in my eyes, it's like a staple of how to treat other people, I guess you can say, in this music industry. It's so easy for, musicians and vocalists, everyone to get a big head or whatever, and these guys don't and didn't. And so for me, that's definitely a huge inspiration.
Kind of before we dive into that, reading a lot of stuff over the last day or so about you guys and coming up, and the one thing that kind of kept coming up through everything was the fucking Hostile YouTube clip from about 10 years ago, and it's like it was in every little bio or little sheet was who the first claim to fame was a viral video of fucking Hostile. So just kind of go over like that video kind of going viral and people hearing the band way and just being like, girls playing Pantera. That's amazing,
Well, I received more death threats in my life than I have ever received again. So when we first started, we were just like having fun. And that video was from, I think it was 2010. And we were playing a NAMM party for Schecter guitars. And before we'd gone on stage, they blew the PA. Like it was completely like we like didn't know if we were actually going to be able to play, but it was just a small shitty bar, and which we usually played and we loved. It was fun, and we got up there and did our cover of fucking Hostile, and someone's old ass flip phone caught it. Yeah, their old ass flip phone caught it and put it online, and that shit still haunts me to this day. I loved covering that song. In fact, something very interesting is Carla and I, when we first started Butcher Babies, we had a different guitar player than we have now, and we said, hey, we want to cover fucking Hostile, and he was like, yeah, right, I can't play that, that's too fast. He's in some like trash Hollywood band now, I don't know. And he's like, I can't play that. You guys, you're crazy. And so we got a different guitar player, and he could play it just fine. he's all, oh, fucking Hostile, sure. And we've covered it a couple of times since then. We covered it last January at Dime Bash again, and it's just so much fun. I love that song. It's just so like, fuck you. Right. Yeah, but that video, I mean, people share it as if that's who we are today. We were just young kids having fun and got to play some sort of fun show. Yeah. And but it did spike a lot of, I guess, controversy in a way. Revolver magazine, I think they're the ones who printed about it first. I was at the House of Blues in LA, rest in peace. And some kid came up to me and he was like, look, it's you guys. Can you sign my magazine? It was like this little blurb on the bottom of a page. And I had no idea that it was there. So I signed it. And that was just, I guess, that was our first publication. And that was cool. So in a way, I'm grateful for it, but I hate that it's still around.
I'm sure you also went and bought 20 copies of that publication too. You're like, my
yeah,
magazine. You signed that and then you ran to Barnes and Nobles and cleared out the shelf.
Oh, absolutely. I think I went to like 3 different magazine stands to find it. There was a magazine stand that was by my house at the time in Hollywood, and every time we were in Revolver or Metal Hammer or any of those, I'd go to that magazine stand, and the guy there, he knew, because I would be like, look, I'm in this. That's me. And so I'd walk in. He's like, all right, what are you in this time? So, I guess it did spark kind of a but I also got a lot of death threats.
Yeah, I was going to ask what were the death threats? What were the basis of the death threats?
Oh my God, you ruined! How dare you? This is sacrilegious. You ruined my favorite song, which I mean, that video sounds fucking terrible. But like, yeah, you ruined my favorite song. How dare you even try and touch Pantera? If you ever come to Tennessee, you better blah blah blah. You know, all this kind of shit. And you know, I was always just like a kid that wanted to play music, and you know, I'm like, oh fuck yeah, this is the break, man. And then to have that kind of backlash from like metalheads and being like, well, she's a chick and she has boobs, so she's fake metal. What a poser. And I'm like, that's so crazy, because this is what I escaped to as a kid. You know, I escaped to the metal from my, you know, the clutches of the Mormon society. That was my escapism. And then to have the same people like threatening to kill me if I ever come to Tennessee, like that was, you know, at 20, how old was I? 24 when this happened. You know, at 24, I was just kind of like, oh man, what do I do? Like, what a bummer. You know, you finally get your big break and everyone fucking hates you. That to me, that was just a big wow. It was an eye opener. But the thing is that I developed really thick skin. Like there's nothing someone could say to me that hasn't been said to me before. There's nothing someone could say about me that hasn't been said before. So I just don't like, I guess that was, you know, a good thing going into my 30s. I just don't give a shit anymore. I do what I want.
That's the thing about, you know, women in metal is like they'll post a picture of you and you'll see in the comment section like, did you know that her left nostril is bigger than her right nostril? You know, like you don't pick it that much, you know, like I don't know if that's true about your nostrils, but I'm just,
it might be.
It's funny just how nitpicky they get about women in metal, but like you can, you know, dudes in metal dye their hair black and do everything else for the rest of their lives. They're like, dude, still looks awesome.
Well, I mean, it's like, okay, for instance, we started releasing music and I was tagged in something on Instagram just the other day. This Portuguese publication was like, Playboy bunnies release new music, blah, blah, blah. I was never a Playboy bunny. Not once have I ever done anything like that. Carla was never a Playboy bunny, but for some reason, our entire career, that's what people have pushed upon us. Like I've never done anything like that. And like I worked for Playboy at the radio station for the morning show, but I was never in the magazine. I'm not a bunny, never did anything like that. So, you know, that's kind of interesting to me that people, they assume stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, if it's like for me, I was born with a birth defect called gastroschisis, and I don't have a belly button. Now, I have a scar that's like this big. That's my battle wound. Like I fucking survived that. That was not something in '85 that kids survived from. And so I don't mind showing it off. To me, it's been there my whole life. I've never had a belly button. I don't know what they feel like, you know, but I have this scar and I will wear crop tops. I don't give a shit. And people will be like, oh my God, she's had a tummy tuck. or like, oh, plastic surgery gone wrong. It's just, you can't win with these idiots.
Yeah, it's definitely a mess. It's definitely a mess.
But I love it, so it's fine.
Yeah, it's definitely something. You know, we were talking about, you know, 2020 technically would have been 10 years of the band. 2021 is going to be 10 years of your first EP.
Yes.
You know, so it's a pretty big time, even though, you know, even though the entire world is burning down around us, you know, it's a big time for the band. Yeah,
it is. And it's crazy to even be sitting here and saying, oh my gosh, we've been doing this for 10 years. It's gone by really fast. We released a 10-year anniversary wine. But to look back and think that we recorded, you know, Mr. Slow Death or Jesus Needs More Babies for His War Machine, 10 years ago. That's crazy to me. And listening to those recordings, and I'm sure, every musician can attest to this. You listen to those recordings, you're like, wow, I sound so different now. Like, I've progressed so much over the years, and that's, that comes with experience, of course. But yeah, it's wild. Like, so wild. Like, I can't believe that we're saying 10 years ago that was the first time people heard our music.
Back to the death threats. I was thinking the first. Sorry, I lost my track of thought there for a second. But the funny thing was, the first time I guess I saw you guys was in Nashville at with Danzig. And so I'm assuming, you rolled up to that show and you're like kind of looking around like, where are these death threats coming from?
Yeah, we had played Tennessee several times before that, that tour with Danzig. The first time that we toured the Midwest, it was kind of a little bit like, do we hire security? Because, we were a baby band, like not making any money, traveling in a converted airport shuttle van that didn't even have like air conditioning, barely had brakes, and it was a little bit terrifying, because you never know what people really will do, and look at what happened with Dime. We think about that all the time, because you never know. And there's still stuff that goes on. I mean, we've had to, in Tennessee, we had to send a police department over to a dude's house because we knew exactly who he was, and this was just last year, and he was sending us death threats. And so we had to, getting a restraining order in another state is absolutely like almost impossible. Right. And so we just had to have the police go over there and tell them to knock it off. And this is not the, first, second, third, fourth, fifth time that shit like that has happened. And I'm not the only one who's dealt with that. I mean, musicians at every level deal with that. People at every level deal with that. But it is a little bit scary because every time you go out, you don't know who has a vendetta against you. You don't know who is sick or who in their wrong mind would do something. So you just never know. But, we love what we do, and I'll sacrifice everything to do it. It's my blood. And the fact that it hasn't been pumping through my veins in the past 2 years has been really hard.
Yeah, it's definitely a mess. Well, being from Tennessee, I'm not currently in Tennessee, but being from Tennessee, I would like to apologize for these states. We're not all that bad.
No, I love Tennessee. I love Nashville. Nashville is one of my favorite cities. So I love Tennessee. In fact, before escaping from California, as I will say, that was on the list of places to possibly go. So by all means, it's nothing against the state. There's crazy people everywhere.
Absolutely. You said you've seen Rex live. What did you see Rex do? What was he playing in at the time?
I think he was in Kill Devil Hill. But when we were on tour with Down, Rex came and played some Pantera songs with the boys in Down, and that was super fucking cool. We were there, Rita was there, we were all standing side stage just watching. It was really cool. I think Zach got up and played too. Just I haven't seen him since then. That was in, I think, 2014. I haven't seen him since then, but that was where I've seen him play, and with Kill Devil Hill, I think at NAMM or something.
Okay. Yeah. Speaking of getting up and playing classic songs, that Danzig tour you got to do was when Doyle would come out and do the Misfits set, and that blew my mind. I mean, that was obviously before the big Misfits reunions and all that stuff. So getting to see Danzig and Doyle even play, I think they played like 7 Misfits songs in 12 minutes, but it was like that was the entire reason to go to that tour.
Absolutely, that was so cool. That was so cool. And they treated us so well. Danzig made sure that we had everything we needed. In fact, Carla and I were so obsessed with this whole scenario that Doyle was there and finally touring with Danzig. Huge inspiration for both of us. We used to cover Mother back in the day. And so it was so cool. We would stand side stage every night. And we missed one night and Danzig asked where we were because he was like, where are the girls? They're usually here. I have never in all my years seen a place almost fall to the ground. It was in El Paso. I think the place was called Tricky Falls. The pit was so crazy that the soundboard just migrated to the back of the place. And I remember Wedge was their sound guy. His name's Wedge. And he's there trying to push the soundboards, trying to keep everything under control.
Yeah, he's not a large man. So yeah, I could definitely see him trying to hold everything together.
It was wild and I loved it. And that tour was actually the first time we got booed. I think it's the only time we've been booed. From like in the same room. I'm sure people at home are like, boo. But it was in Niagara Falls and we were in the middle of our set and there were these group of dudes who just decided they didn't want us there and they just started booing. And it was so loud. It was so fucking loud. And I looked down at them and it's such a powerful thing to be on stage and be like, this is my spot. Right. Like you don't come to my house and act like this. And so we just turned the crowd against them. So the crowd took care of it. I'm like, these guys over there, let's fuck them up. Right. But that tour was so cool. And to this day, I mean, I went to Danzig's Halloween party. We're still friends, and I love building those relationships. And like Steve and Doyle himself too, just great people.
Love the fact that Doyle would get the entire Doyle regalia on just to come out for those couple of songs, but I got to do a sit down interview with him a few years ago and I couldn't do the interview with him until he was ready to go. And so I walk on their little tour van or whatever. And he's just, already in all the garb, no shirt, just muscles everywhere with the, the white devil lock and the white face paint. I'm like, all right, here we go.
What's so interesting? So that we barely saw him without that stuff on because, we just see him in passing. It's not like we would hang out all the time or he'd be taking his makeup off, but I never really saw him without the makeup fully on that tour. And then after the tour, I saw him in Hollywood and he was like, hey, and I was like, hey. He's all Doyle. I'm like, oh shit, dude, no makeup.
Nice.
Yeah, good dudes. Love those guys.
Speaking of good dudes, let's talk about Vinnie Paul and the few times the times that he would come out to see you and just life of the party that guy is.
Oh, every time, and his entourage. Just all good guys and just want to make you feel like you're part of the family. And I think that's how, I mean, that's just how he was. It wasn't an act. It wasn't anything. I mean, everyone in the Pantera circle, that's just how they are. Like, hey, man, you want to have a drink? You're part of the family now. And I think I think the first time I met him was in 2013, I believe. Was at Mayhem Fest. And then ever since then, just been the nicest guy. Just so nice and, coming to see everyone play. And it's weird. Our sound guy, he texted us right before the last show that we saw him at. And he's like, no pressure, guys. Vinnie Paul's here. Just his attitude, his creativity, everything about him, just a huge inspiration, huge loss to our community.
Yeah, I mean, I've said the story a few times on the podcast. But last time I saw him, Chris Kale and I went to see Hell Yeah together, and so I go hang out, and at that point I'm friends with Chris, so I'm friends with everybody, you know, because Chris is the life of the party too, and you know, Vinnie is just holding court. You know, we're me and a circle of dudes are just standing there listening to Vinnie Paul stories, you know, and like I said, he had just played Rock on the Range, so that was the first time he played in Columbus since the you know the murder of Dime, and he was just telling us all the story of that. And I remember I was like, man, I wish I had a recorder, because the the podcaster media guy in me comes out, and I was like, these stories are gold, and they're just there for us though.
Yeah, and there's something to be said about that too, when it's a personal conversation and one-on-one, and you're getting all the stories.
Yeah,
it's kind of like it's like sacred a little bit, you know. Those moments you'll never forget, and that's beautiful. You know, and that's how he was. He treated everyone like family. You come in, you hang out, you're family.
Yeah, it's such a cool dude, and you know, I got to see Pantera a few times as a kid, meet him as a kid, and then obviously kind of talk to him as an adult, and yeah, so it's definitely awesome to be able to say that just for me in my little world.
When was the first time you saw them?
First time I saw Pantera was the Far Beyond Driven tour in '94.
Damn,
I was 14, and my friend and I. We went downtown Nashville, searched all the hotels, finally found what hotel they were staying at. We like staked out the lobby for like hours, and then we finally saw Big Val. And this is, you know, home videos are out. We saw Big Val. You know, we're a bunch of dumb teenagers run up to him like, where are they at? You know, and he's like, if you guys are cool, they'll be cool, and blah blah blah. So we sat and talked to Val for a little bit. And then I ran to the bathroom, and I came in. My friend came running in. He's like, "They're checking out." And so I walk out, and all I see is the big pink beard, and so I have these like terrible pictures of me when I'm 14, like making metal fingers with Dime and Vinnie on each side. It's pretty awesome.
That is amazing.
Yeah,
that is so cool. And you know, to be 14 and meet your idols like that, how incredible! And them being cool, that's got to be a giant like. I did it.
Right. And then actually every time they came through Nashville, you know, we would find the bus, and we would stake it out. And so I got to meet them a handful of times. And then I got to meet Dime. Damage Plan played here a couple of months before his murder. And I almost didn't go, and I went. And then as I was walking out, Dime was signing autographs. So I went over, talked to him again, and then kind of got to tell him like I met you when I was 14. Now I'm 24. And by that time I had been in a band called Primer 55. We had toured and we'd done all this stuff. And for some reason I just unloaded all that onto him that day as like a thank you. And then he was taken from us. So it was very nice to be able to do that.
That's
you know,
incredible.
after years. Yeah, it was pretty awesome.
That's like, not many people have that story.
Right.
That's really cool. And the fact that he was attentive and listening to that is also incredible.
He was like, that's awesome, man. You know, doing all his Dime stuff. But
Wow. Yeah, Pantera. I mean, think about it this way: like, had Pantera not happened,
right,
where would metal be today? It wouldn't. Definitely not the same by any means. And the fact that they've kept the spirit alive with, you know, Dime Bash and Ride for Dime and all those things is really cool. And I've been so incredibly lucky to be a part of it for, I mean, several times. And, you know, they have all these jams in LA, like they did. And, you know, being able to get up and sing these songs that, you know, were written by these fucking geniuses, and who were probably not in their right mind writing them, you know. But you know, it's an incredible legacy, and the fact that you were able to see them live several times and meet them is awesome. I'm you know, I'm truly jealous of that. But the fact that we are all blessed with the music, it's pretty cool. And it's, you know, I feel like Pantera was one of the one of the first that kind of brought the mainstream in a little bit too.
Yeah, I mean, technically, if you don't count the Skid Row album, they're the first #1, heavy metal band, with Far Beyond Driven, #1 on Billboard and all that stuff. And I definitely, one of those record sales was from me. So
yeah, and what I love about them too is they didn't start out at all like what they ended up being like. The Diamond Daryl. Yeah. Like the whole hair metal thing. It just shows that there can be evolution and there can be change and it can be great, with a band. And they were great in all that they did.
I think that early stuff, even though it's silly, it's like all of us had early bands that were silly,
I mean, my band was silly.
and so that they learn how to write glammy type songs that, learning from Dokken and Def Leppard and all those bands about how to write a good, heavy but catchy song. And I think that even though they switched into heavier stuff, I think they still kept that kind of sensibility about them to be able to write like a verse, chorus, bridge out kind of song,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the fundamentals were still there, but I mean, yeah. The way my band started, I'm like, see guys, it shows growth and evolution and you grew up a little bit.
One more thing that kind of ties you to the Pantera camp is this recently you did the 99 bottles of beer thing.
Yes.
Phil is a part of. So tell us a little bit about that.
That was so cool and so fun. I was number 72. And I never really get to do like my guttural stuff in the band because that's what Carla does in our band. And so I got to pull it out for this one and just get super fucking brutal with it. And then I knew Phil was going to be on it. I knew there were several people that were confirmed for it. But when it came out, I actually listened to all 99 of them because each one was so cool. And then Phil's was exactly like you would expect. One bottle of barrel wall. But that was really cool and really fun. I was super honored that they thought of me to be a part of it. And among so many greats. And people who aren't even vocalists. It was kind of cool.
Yeah, I mean that was cool. You've done that. Carla's done a lot of the stuff with Charlie, with all the live collaborations and things like that. And I think that the one thing 2020 is going to show us is that things can be done in different ways and collaborations and just all this stuff. Even doing the show this way now is a product of not being able to go see you at a festival or see you at a show and sit down and say, "Hey, Heidi, let's talk about Pantera." You've got to find a way to do it. So I think everyone's creativity kind of came out in 2020 to get creative on how to do things in this virtual world that we now live in.
Oh yeah, I mean, think about Zoom. I had Christmas with my family via Zoom. Like usually it'd be on a crappy FaceTime, but and even this, like being able to see you, like beforehand we just did this on the phone, right. And that was cool, but this is cool, being able to actually see facial expressions. And I'm a very expressive person with my hands and face and everything. So
my hands, it's crazy.
Sometimes when I watch these things back, I'm like, God, someone needs to tape my hands to my legs.
But no, it's definitely fun. Yeah, the first time I ever saw a interview back that I did, I'm just like, hey, so like, when you talk about,
yeah,
you don't realize it until you see it. It's pretty nuts.
We're just very expressive people.
There we go. As we kind of wrap up here, what's your go-to Pantera record?
Vulgar Display, man. Yeah, it's got to be. I mean, it's monumental, really. That's I mean, all of them are great, but yeah, probably that one. One story that I was really inspired by, just kind of like wrapping it up a little bit there. One story that I was really inspired by is that the hustle that Pantera had before they broke, they would just make the tapes and sell them out of their truck. and try and just hear everyone, you got to hear this, you got to hear this, you got to hear this. And, that hustle, it's, I guess it's just not really like, it's not like that anymore. And I think that kind of hustle is really cool. And that's something I always thought about with them, is just the depths that they would go to for their success. I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, I mean, there was definitely a time, even in my early bands in the mid 90s, like I was trying to do, you would go out on every show and flyer, hand out handbills to everybody. Mm-hmm. And now I wonder, if you're in a band, you're just like, well, here's a Facebook post and I'm done for the day. Like, you wonder how many people are out there still. I still think that the, interaction, the human interaction with people is still something you need to do to get your band across and things like that.
Totally. When we first started, we had a residency at the Roxy, and we would go up and down Sunset Boulevard and hand out flyers or give out free tickets and stuff. And that was like, I think that's how initially we got people to come to our shows. Initially.
Yeah, it's just got to be, I wonder how many bands, do all this stuff, and even a Pantera, they were together for 8 years before the first major label album, comes out, and they're building and building and building to this thing. And I think a lot of bands now get together, and if they don't have success in 6 months, they're like, fuck it.
Oh, absolutely. The hustle, it's just so easy, I guess, now for bands to make a post on Facebook and think that that's going to break them, or make a song and think that that's going to break them, play a couple shows locally and think that's going to break them. Clearly it's not like that, but there's something to be said about that hustle for sure.
Well, you never know what's going to break you. It could be a fucking hostile,
cover. a shitty video that goes viral.
Yeah, you never know.
Yeah, I know. I guess I'm just like them.
All right, and well, as we talked about at the beginning, we talked a little bit about what's going on in the Butcher Babies camp. But as we wrap up here, 2021, have you heard? Are we going to get shows in 2021, or what's going on here?
I mean, I'm booked on a ton of shows for 2021, so I hope so. Oh, yeah. I mean, I know a lot of bands had rescheduled for, this month and had to postpone those again. Everyone's hopeful, but every day is a different story. There's tours that we are tentatively booked on that could happen or not. Stuff in Europe, it's just, come on, live music. Let's do this.
All right. And then final question, what's your go-to Pantera song?
Oh, fucking Hostile.
Here we go.
Of course. It's what I wouldn't be here if fucking Hostile hadn't happened, right? So
absolutely. Well, Heidi Shepherd, thank you so much for taking the time today. Thanks for dragging the waters with me. And
no, thank you.
Pantera today.
Yes. Thank you so much. And hey,